Hello explorers, thanks for joining us again and welcome back to our channel. As you may have known, there are lots of events happening in the continent. A new government has been set up in Chad, where the General Mahamat Idriss Déby Itno was sworn in on Monday as president of the two-year transitional period ahead of democratic elections and has promised to quickly appoint a national unity government 18 months after taking power at the head of the military junta. The question here is this going to be like father and son? But in this episode, we shall be looking on how this transition is playing out and what the Chad people are expecting. A laborious national sovereignty and inclusive dialogue had endorsed Saturday the possibility for the head of state to run for president at the end of the transition, but in the absence of large part of the political opposition and the main armed rebel groups who denounced the perpetuation of the Déby dynasty in power, something really popular within the African continent. The 38-year-old general has already been proclaimed by the army as the president of the republic as of 20th of April 2021 as the head of the Transitional Military Council of 15 generals, the day of the announcement of the death of his father, Idriss Déby Itno, killed at the front against rebels after having ruled his dynasty or the vast Sahelian country for over 30 years. Moving ahead, in considering this, during the inauguration ceremony on Monday at the Palais du 15 Janvier in Ndjamena, Chad, the president had swapped his usual general uniform for a traditional white Chadian buba. In this episode, here is what transition or what happened in Chad.
Chad's military transition leader Mahamat Idriss Déby was officially sworn in on Monday as president, ending the uncertainty for the country's political future. He said that his government will put his heart and soul into ensuring that the will of the Chadian people is fully upheld. He said this on Monday after being presented with the badge of dignity of the Great Cross of Chad, a symbol of Chadian power. The second phase of transition that we are embarking on will be fully devoted to the implementation of the conclusions of the National Inclusive and Sovereign Dialogue in the establishment of a government of national unity. The 38-year-old five-star general took the helm in April 2021 after his father Idriss Déby Itno, who had ruled with an iron fist for 3 decades, was killed during an operation against rebels. Parliament was dissolved and the constitution suspended as Déby was proclaimed president. He headed a junta of 15 generals whose declared plan was to hand over power after 18 months.
According to the new president in Chad, the second phase of the transition must lead to a strengthening of democracy in the country of Chad, and the future government will work body and soul, according to his words, to ensure that there will be, and also the will of the Chadian people will have to be met in looking at different areas and not to suffer any deviation, according to him, with regards to the elections that's organized in terms of transparency and serenity to ensure the return to constitutional order. In looking at different areas, the inauguration took place in the presence of Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, several ministers from West and Central African, like countries like Niger, Central African Republic, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the ambassadors of France and European Union, but in the absence of the African Union representatives. The reason why the African Union did not attend, that's not a question. Looking at different areas, international community, referring to 2 commitments made by Déby when he came to power. The African Union had demanded on 19 September that the junta not extend the 18 months of transition and record unequivocally that no member of the transitional military could become the candidate in the elections at the end of the transition. This is the question with regards to Chad. During his inauguration speech, Mr. Déby asked the international community to accompany Chad in its permanent request for security and stability, both inside the country and outside its borders, particularly in the theaters of peacekeeping operations and also fight against terrorism. Chad has been regularly beset for decades by offensive forms of multitude of rebels groups and remains a strategic ally for the West in the fight against jihadists within this region. The European Union had expressed its concern about the decision to extend the transition and allow General Déby to run for the presidency, reflecting an embarrassment of the international community, according to different ways that experts looking at it. And considering other aspects, the military council has been dissolved, Mr. Déby becomes president of the transition with the possibility of deciding directly who is the prime minister or forming a government. His powers will be broadened and extended, as also that will give him wider powers to make decisions. Mahamat Idriss Déby must improve in his way of presiding, and this is very important. Mahamat Idriss Déby has too much on his plate. The question here is, can he deliver for the Chadian people? This is very important. The world is watching, and African people are watching as well. Hopefully, Mahamat Idriss Déby can deviate away from his father's iron fist in ruling Chad. We all are looking at what he brings to the table, and hopefully that he can go through a clear transition in the required period. I want to thank you for watching. We encourage you to check some of our informative video on our YouTube channel. We're looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.